There are days when nothing seems out of place, and yet something doesn't fit. The world keeps moving at its usual pace, cars crossing the streets, voices blending in casual conversations, the sun keeping its steady course across the sky. But inside, there's a slight tremor, a restlessness that has no shape and no name. It's like walking under the midday heat and suddenly feeling a cold breeze slip across your skin. A brief breath of air, but strong enough to send shivers down your spine. Or like looking at your own reflection and realizing that the eyes, the ones that have always been yours, now carry an unfamiliar shadow. That's the first sign. Not an audible sound, not a scream, but a whisper, so faint it can sometimes be mistaken for your own thoughts. It doesn't ask for anything concrete. It doesn't demand an immediate change. It simply calls, as if saying, something's missing, something's been forgotten, something needs to be remembered. Life goes on, and the hours pile up like dry leaves swept away by the wind. And yet the whisper persists. No matter how much you try to drown it out with tasks, conversations, or distractions, it finds cracks to slip through. Sometimes it comes disguised in the silence that follows a forced laugh. Other times, in the emptiness that seeps in right after a fleeting moment of pleasure. It's a silent, yet profound calling. It doesn't come from the outside. It's not the world telling you what to do. It comes from within, from a place where the voice doesn't use words, but vibrations. When the soul begins to drift away, it doesn't vanish suddenly. It pulls back little by little, like the tide that seems still until you suddenly realize it's already gone. And when that happens, the body still lives. The face still smiles. But something essential begins to fade. What few people realize is that this whisper is, in fact, a cry for help. Not the kind that's shouted from the edge of a cliff, but the kind sent out in coded signals, hoping that someone who is paying enough attention to decipher them. And it's in that moment, the very instant this subtle voice slips through the barrier of the everyday, that something changes. Not in the world, but in your gaze. As if suddenly every gesture, every conversation, every decision carried an invisible question. What if it's not life that's broken, but your connection to it? And that's the moment the soul begins to scream without a voice. Outside, everything looks the same. The body wakes up, looks, performs its functions. It breathes the way it's always breathed. But inside, there's a dense silence, as if an echo had replaced the pulse of life. The world sees a functioning person, someone who works, talks, reacts, but the soul is somewhere else. It's like watching a movie from the back row of an empty theater and realizing you're not part of the story. You see the scenes, you understand the plot, but nothing truly touches you. Everything becomes repetitive, predictable. Breakfast, the messages on your phone, the same commute as always. The days stack up like the pages of a book you've read too many times, without surprise, without sparkle. This disconnection is treacherous. It hides behind names that seem harmless, lack of motivation, built-up fatigue, a rough patch. But the truth is something else. It's not the body that's tired. It's the soul that no longer finds a reason to dance inside it. And when the soul drifts away, time loses texture. Hours pass, but leave no trace. Meetings with friends feel like scripted dialogues. Even emotions become diluted, as if life were being viewed through fogged glass. Some people live like this for years, believing it's normal to grow older and lose the spark. But it isn't. This absence is not an inevitable part of life. It's an alarm. And like any alarm, it grows louder, until it becomes impossible to ignore. That's when the small, invisible breakdowns begin. The laugh that doesn't rise from the chest. The hug that doesn't warm you. The work that no longer stirs any pride. The feeling of being surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. The soul is like a flame. When it pulls away, life can go on, but without warmth, without light, without direction. And the longer the body lives without that presence, the more the emptiness grows, silent and consuming. But there are signs, and they don't come from the body. They don't show up on tests. They can't be diagnosed by machines. But when the soul begins to scream in silence, the world around you changes in subtle and relentless ways. First come the recurring dreams. Scenes that repeat night after night. Old houses, endless corridors, oceans that call to you but never let you dive in. Dreams that carry the weight of a message even if you don't understand the language. Then comes the heightened sensitivity to environments. Places that once felt comfortable now seem heavy, as if the air were too dense to breathe. People who once felt pleasant now drain your energy with just a few words, or even with a single glance. There's also the strange feeling of being out of place in your own home. You look at the objects you chose, the furniture you bought, the bedroom where you sleep, and you feel as though none of it truly belongs to you. It's as if you were a guest in your own life. Another clue, the aversion to former passions. Things that once made your heart race, a hobby, a song, a place, now provoke nothing but indifference. As if the energy that once fueled those joys had been siphoned away to some unreachable place. And then, perhaps the most unsettling of all, losing your sense of time. Days that pass far too quickly, yet somehow feel long and heavy. The sense that something is out of sync, like a movie playing with the audio out of step. These signs are not accidental. They are not flaws of the mind or the body. They are codes. Encrypted messages sent by the soul to warn that the path is narrowing, that the thread connecting it to the body is wearing thin. And ignoring them comes at a cost. The more you pretend not to notice, the more the soul must raise the volume of its language. And sometimes it does this through sudden falls, unexpected emotional breakdowns, impulsive decisions, inevitable breakups. Because the soul knows that if you remain asleep, something far greater will be lost. But often, the soul's cry isn't just about you, it's about the burdens you carry that were never meant to be yours. There are burdens we are born with, and others that are handed to us before we even understand what it means to live. They are invisible memories, etched not in the mind but in the energetic field. Stories we never lived, yet somehow breathe through us. It's the weight of ancestral memories, kept like scars in the subtle fabric of the soul. Fears with no logical explanation. Guilt without an apparent cause. Patterns that repeat from generation to generation, as if there were a silent vow to keep the suffering alive. We also carry inherited traumas. Maybe your body has never lived through a war, but your soul feels the echo of the explosions. Maybe you've never lost everything, yet there's a constant fear that something will be torn away from you at any moment. And then there is the pain of the collective energies we absorb simply by belonging to groups, families, cultures, beliefs. It's like walking with a backpack that was already full before you even placed your own stones inside. The cruelest part is that, in these cases, the soul isn't crying out only for its own rescue. It's crying out for you to see that you're suffocating under a weight that does not belong to you. The body feels it. The fatigue runs deeper than any sleep can heal. The chest tightens without any physical cause. And sometimes, sadness arrives uninvited, like a storm forming in a clear sky. The cry for help is not asking you to endure more. It's asking you to let go. To realize that living while carrying other people's pain is not an act of love, but a way of losing yourself. Because there comes a point when the weight becomes so familiar that you forget what it was like to live without it. And that's where the danger hides. When you start to believe that this prison is your home. But there's a deeper reason for this invisible prison, and it has neither bars nor locks. Some prisons have no walls, no guards, and yet they keep their prisoners more captive than any physical cell ever could. They are subtle prisons, invisible to the eye, but so real they shape every step you take. Often, they're made of beliefs, phrases repeated for years until they harden into unquestionable truths. You can't. That's not for you. It's always been this way, and it always will be. These words settle like bricks in the mind, building walls you don't even realize are there. Other times, the prison is an unconscious spiritual contract, a vow made in another life, a promise sealed in the silence of an old wound. I'll never love like that again. I'll always protect this person, no matter the cost. I'd rather carry the pain than see someone else suffer. And then there are the repetitive patterns that coil around the soul like subtle chains. Relationships that feel eerily alike, even with different people. Mistakes that repeat in cycles so precise they seem choreographed. The most unsettling part is that, in these prisons, the key is always in your pocket. But you don't know it's there. Or if you do, you're afraid to use it, because freedom is unknown, and the known, even when painful, feels safer. The soul knows when it's trapped. It feels the space closing in, the breath getting shorter. And in that quiet constriction, it begins sending more and more urgent signals, hoping you'll notice. But here's what most people overlook. It's not the prison that needs to open first. It's you who must want to leave. Because when the soul is ready to break the cycle, it creates an inevitable moment. An instant so intense there's no way to keep going as before. And when that moment arrives, it becomes the breaking point. There comes a moment when the soul can't bear it anymore. It's not gradual. It's not silent. It's as if something tears through the invisible fabric that separates the bearable from the unbearable. Sometimes this moment arrives as an unexplained illness. Doctors find no cause. Tests come back normal. But you know it isn't. Other times, it manifests as a sudden loss of something or someone you believed was the foundation of your life. And when that foundation crumbles, everything built upon it falls with it. It can also come in the form of complete apathy, a draining away of color and sound where nothing stirs your interest. Laughter doesn't rise. Tears don't fall. It's an emotional desert. The breaking point doesn't ask permission. It storms in. It kicks down the inner doors you thought were unbreakable. And it lays bare, without filters, what you've been avoiding for years. To those watching from the outside, it looks like a collapse. But to the soul, it's the last resort. It's the moment it decides that staying silent is more dangerous than forcing the rupture. And it's in this state that many people realize, for the first time, that the life they've built is no longer livable for who they truly are. The breaking point is not the end. It's the portal. A portal that only appears when the pain becomes unbearable enough to make you step through. But crossing it requires something few have the courage to give. To listen. To listen to what comes from within, without trying to smother it with distractions or soul-numbing remedies. Because when you allow yourself to hear, the first door begins to open, and on the other side, the calling takes shape. On the other side, there is no sudden flash of light, no ready-made solution. What there is silence. But it's a different kind of silence, not the heavy silence of disconnection, but the kind that invites you in. A space where, for the first time in a long while, the soul can be heard without interference. Hearing the call is not about understanding everything at once. It's about allowing yourself to feel, even when there's no explanation. It's about standing before an unfamiliar road and accepting that it may lead to a place you can't yet imagine. For some, this call arrives as a soft voice, almost imperceptible, during a moment of calm. For others, it's a sudden shiver, a sense that something is trying to speak through signs, coincidences, unexpected encounters. And sometimes, listening simply means staying still long enough to notice that something is happening. The soul doesn't compete with the world's noise, it waits. It waits for you to tire of the noise, to realize how much your distractions are just attempts not to hear it. Simple practices can open this door even wider. Sitting in silence, even for just a few minutes, to observe whatever comes. Writing without thinking, letting the pen reveal what the mind doesn't filter. Being in nature, where the vibration is pure and answers emerge effortlessly. It's not about finding a manual. It's about recognizing the call as real. Validating that this restlessness is not weakness, not drama, not imagination. It is life asking to be truly lived. And when you accept the act of listening, something shifts in a way that's almost imperceptible. The air feels lighter, the colors seem more vivid, and a quiet certainty arises. There is a next step. And that step is to release everything that was never yours. As you cross this door, you realize you've been carrying more than you should. Far more. Old burdens, memories that aren't yours, inherited pains you never questioned. Letting go of what isn't yours isn't just an act of courage, it's an act of spiritual survival. Because for the soul to breathe fully, it needs space. And there is no space where the heart is crammed with the weight of others. Sometimes, these burdens come in the form of invisible expectations. You live trying to live up to standards you never chose, being the family's savior, the friend who always fixes everything, the professional who never fails. And without realizing it, your energy shapes itself to meet these demands. Other times, the weight is emotional. Promises you made, knowingly or not, to protect someone at any cost. Guilt that doesn't belong to you, yet you carry it as if it were a signature mark of your story. To release, you need to ritualize detachment. Not because the ritual has magical power in itself, but because it signals to the soul and to the mind that something has been closed. This can be done in many ways. Writing letters to old pains, thanking them for what they taught you and allowing them to go. Visualizing the threads that connect you to external burdens being cut, one by one. Simple physical acts, like reorganizing your space, donating items, letting go of things that keep you tied to past energy. With each tie severed, the soul reclaims a bit more of its inner territory. The breath grows deeper, the mind becomes clearer, and the sense that something new can finally fill that space begins to blossom. But letting go also comes with risk, because when you remove old weights, you're left facing an empty space. And emptiness always asks to be filled. And that's when the last door appears, the one not everyone has the courage to cross. This final door doesn't open with force. It opens with truth. After hearing the call and releasing what wasn't yours, You find yourself standing before an untouched territory within. A clear, open field, but a silent one. And here comes the most difficult question. What will you plant? Aligning with destiny isn't about creating a perfect life. It's about creating a life that answers to your soul. It means no longer making decisions solely out of fear, obligation, or the need for approval. It means choosing paths that resonate with who you truly are, even if that goes against what the world expects. This stage requires listening and action at the same time. Listening to recognize your soul's genuine desires, not the conditioned ones, not the shoulds, but what pulses organically within you. Action to turn those desires into tangible reality, step by step, without waiting for everything to be perfect before you begin. Aligning with destiny also means recognizing the rhythm of your own life. Not living to the beat of others, but to your own. And accepting that your rhythm may be slower, more intense, more erratic, or softer than anyone else's around you. Here, the soul stops being just a passenger. It becomes the captain once again. And when that happens, there's an almost physical shift. Your eyes shine again. Your body feels lighter. Your presence stops being automatic and becomes alive. But aligning with destiny demands renunciation. Renunciation of old stories. Renunciation of the version of yourself created only to survive. Renunciation of the comfort of the familiar. And when that renunciation is embraced, something greater takes place. You not only answer the soul's cry for help, you lead it to the place it always longed to be. And when you arrive there, you discover that the true destiny is peace. When the soul finally comes home, there are no fireworks, no bursts of joy. What there is silence. But it's a silence that welcomes, that warms, that fills. It's like arriving at a safe harbor after crossing stormy seas. The body, once tense, begins to release. The breath deepens effortlessly. The gaze rests, no longer rushing to spot the next danger. The peace that emerges is not the absence of challenges. It is presence. Presence of yourself in every moment. Presence in a simple conversation, in the smell of coffee, in the sound of rain tapping against the window. Small things that once went unnoticed now feel like quiet miracles. This state is not something you achieve forever. It must be nurtured. It must be remembered, cultivated, protected from distractions and from the old habit of getting lost. Because the soul, even once rescued, can drift away again if it isn't heard. But now there is a crucial difference. You recognize its voice. You can tell the true call from the noise of the world. And that changes everything. When the soul finds peace, it also offers peace. Relationships change. Decisions change. Destiny itself changes. And what once seemed unreachable begins to draw near naturally. In the end, you realize the cry for help was never about escaping something. It was about returning to your essence, returning to the place where your choices are born in purity, returning to yourself. When the soul cries for help, it isn't broken, it's calling you back home. Listen, because what you call life only begins when you answer.